our Prime Minister's visionary leadership has set the tone for a future where economic prosperity, social well-being, and environmental preservation converge to create a sustainable and resilient nation. Madam Speaker, permit me first to speak on the allocations in the budget presented by the Honourable Prime Minister as it relates to the Ministry of Employment and Labour. In employment and labour, we understand and appreciate the imperative of fostering a dynamic and inclusive economy that provides meaningful employment opportunities whilst safeguarding the rights and dignity of our workforce. As such, Madam Speaker, this budget reflects our government's commitment to building a sustainable future for our federation that will shape the trajectory of our economy and society, which ultimately determines the legacy we leave for generations to come. A sustainable economy and the job market are intricately connected with several key factors to consider. Factors including, Madam Speaker, but not limited to technological advancements, environmental and social considerations, policy initiatives, green jobs, reskilling and education, global collaboration, and lastly, but by no means least, an equitable and just transition. Transitioning towards sustainability is a composite process that requires collaboration between governments, businesses, and individuals to create a more resilient and more equitable job market. St. Kitts and Nevis must be poised to not only embrace the change in dynamics, but also to ensure that all stakeholders are holistically prepared for the future of labour. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Employment and Labour has demonstrated remarkable resilience and adaptability, having endured unprecedented challenges brought about by the global pandemic. In the face of economic uncertainties, our job market has experienced severe shocks, and continue to recover. The continued geopolitical tensions, climate change, and a cost of living crisis have created a paradigm shift in our way of life. And as such, the evolution from the Department of Labour to the Ministry of Employment and Labour has marked the beginning of the government's clear response to the complex and changing dynamics of labour. The rebranding of the ministry visually signifies the changes ahead and highlights the continued work that we are doing in the Ministry of Labour and Employment to modernize our services to meet the demands of an ever-evolving labour landscape. Notwithstanding the challenges, Madam Speaker, I am pleased to share that we have made significant progress through the 2023 year. We have strengthened our partnerships, both regionally and internationally. As the Minister of Labour and Employment, I participated in the ILO Caribbean Labour Ministers meeting on the very timely and relevant theme of social justice, the foundation for a sustainable Caribbean transformation, which, Madam Speaker, proved to be very essential for the transformation and transitioning of St. Kitts and Nevis into a sustainable island state. This meeting provided a crucial platform for the sharing of best practices, innovative ideas, and discussing challenges facing the labour market and social justice in the Caribbean region as a whole. The exchange of knowledge will enable us in St. Kitts and Nevis to adapt and implement relevant measures in this march towards a sustainable island state that are suited to our unique circumstances. And I must add, Madam Speaker, how these discussions help to shape our discussions on how social justice should apply in the context of the minimum wage. The discussions on social justice are particularly relevant to us here as we strive to ensure that all members of our society have equal access to opportunities, fair treatment, and a decent standard of living. As part of the government's broader social protection strategy and labour market regulatory framework, a National Minimum Wage Advisory Committee was commissioned on the 23rd of March 2023 to review the existing minimum wage. The committee comprised government officials, workers, and employers' representatives, as well as the key stakeholder organizations. Permit me to say at this time and pay recognition to some of the members from the Minimum Wage Committee, including His Excellency Sam Kondo, who led the committee, Patricia Haynes, Welsh, I think she no longer carries Haynes, Patricia Welsh from the Central Bank. We had representation from the Social Security, the Ministry of Finance, the Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We even have representation from NEVIS. I want to place my commendation at this time, Madam Speaker, for the hard work conducted by the committee in working towards the increase in the minimum wage. One of the key factors considered, amongst other things, by the committee was the urgent need to reduce income inequalities by creating what we refer to as a livable wage. In fact, we paid a lot of attention to a statement made by the ILO Director General when he said, "Income inequality and poverty will rise if the purchasing power of the lowest paid workers are not maintained. In addition, in a much-needed post-pandemic recovery would be put to risk if this isn't done. This could fuel social unrest across the world and undermine the goal of achieving prosperity and peace for all." Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to announce that this government has taken a human-centric approach to governing, an approach, Madam Speaker, that underscores the importance of human capital in the progress and prosperity of our nation. Madam Speaker, I know when the mover of the bill, the Honorable Prime Minister, made his address on Wednesday of last week, the Honorable Member from Nevis 9 shared a submission where he said that instead of introducing a uniform minimum wage, perhaps we could have considered a tier approach. In fact, he said that was the approach taken by the government in Grenada, where they considered a minimum wage for different sectors, so that there would be a minimum wage for teachers, there'd be a minimum wage for construction workers, there'd be a minimum wage for doctors, lawyers, just different sectors, as opposed to what we did here by implementing a uniform minimum wage. Now, he wasn't opposed to the introduction of the increase in the wage, but he recommended a tiered approach for the different sectors. This government, Madam Speaker, we feel that we can address the issues related to wage disparities and reduce income inequality across different sectors and groups of workers. This approach, Madam Speaker, ensures that all workers, regardless of industry or skill level, receive a basic standard of living. This narrows the gap between the high and low income earners. In fact, I always hear the Prime Minister, the Honourable Member for St. Christopher 8, when he says the raise in the minimum wage reduces the gap that the IMF keeps saying in their last report is growing between the rich and the poor. We feel if we introduce a standard minimum wage, this helps with the objective of SDG 10, which aims to promote greater economic and social equality, thereby reducing disparities among the different group of workers. So I think the committee must be commended by implementing a uniform rate as opposed to the tiered approach. So, Madam Speaker, as we forge ahead towards obtaining a sustainable island state, the Ministry of Employment and Labour is powered by 5 sustainable goals. SDG 1, no poverty. SDG 2, zero hunger. SDG 8, decent work and economic growth. Most importantly, SDG 10, reducing inequalities. And SDG 12, responsible consumption and production. The budget allocations for 2024 in the Ministry of Labour and Employment will fuel our transformative goals in the world of work. It is with this context, Madam Speaker, that we move to achieve labour reform, which would include amendments to existing legislation and the drafting and ratification of legislation and policies to adapt to evolving economic conditions, to enhance productivity, and address issues like job security and well-being. Madam Speaker, the report that the Minimum Wage Advisory Committee would have submitted for the review of the Cabinet considered a number of things raised by the member for Nevis 9 when he did his address. One of the things they considered, and it's the recommendation listed at number 2, is that a task force be set up to assess the effects of the phased approach of the increase in the minimum wage from $9 to $10.75. So the minimum wage, as the mover of the bill suggested, from the 1st of January goes up to $10.75 for a period of 16 months, and thereafter in June 2025, or July I think, it would go up to the $500 monthly. Now, the Minimum Wage Committee thought that it would be prudent to put a task force in place to assess the effects of this first phase approach. 500 weekly, thank you. Now, the Ministry of Employment and Labour is going to move swiftly into the new year in implementing this first recommendation by the committee. A number of other things were recommended to deal with any shocks that may occur as a result of the increase in the minimum wage. One of the things raised in consultation, particularly by the employers, was how do we relate the increase in the minimum wage to productivity? We absolutely agree that they are connected, Madam Speaker, and so the recommendation was to establish a National Productivity Council with a view towards the implementation of a productivity matrix. So the national minimum wage isn't just going to go up and persons think, they can't be productive. We want to ensure that workers and employers as well appreciate the nexus between the increase in the minimum wage and productivity. We appreciate as well that small business sector would be the sector that is mostly likely impacted by the increase of the minimum wage, and there were recommendations made for that as well. The committee suggested that there must be a measure of insulation from increase in the minimum wage that will affect their cost for small businesses to survive. Thus, businesses in this category should be the ones that benefit primarily from government subsistence, particularly step workers and even other forms of concession. So we do understand and appreciate that small businesses, they're likely to be impacted as a result of this increase. But we want to assure members that we do have a plan in place that would be put in place immediately in the new year. Lastly, one of the things we looked at, amongst other things, was the review of government's fiscal incentive policy and general concessions to micro and small businesses, as well as reviewing the methodology of calculating cost, insurance freight, port charges, and customs duties to help with the overall cost of operations for businesses. So we did not just in a vacuum decide that we would increase the minimum wage. We considered all the factors raised during the consultations we had and accepted the recommendations made by the Minimum Wage Committee. And so, Madam Speaker, this government is in fact cognizant of the fact that achieving labor protection for all workers and at the same time ensuring sustainable enterprises requires an integrated policy approach and a clear and coherent framework. And that is what we have in terms of what was recommended and what we intend to implement in the Ministry of Labour and Employment. A part of the framework, as I said, is outlined in the final recommendations made by the committee, and we are going to move on them. Madam Speaker, the pandemic has highlighted many key issues in employment practices, such as the need for an unemployment fund, which is a beneficial safety net for individuals during periods of joblessness. In the upcoming year, the Ministry of Labour and Employment will focus on a critical issue, keeping in line with the government's overall fiscal goals. This involves considering the allocation of resources for unemployment while considering the sustainability of the fund. As we march forward to achieving a sustainable island state, it is imperative that we prioritize social protection mechanisms that are resilient, responsive, and aligned with our long-term objectives and overall vision. By revising the existing fund payable in cases of severance and introducing an unemployment fund, we can uphold the principles of social justice and economic opportunity in a manner that is consistent with the overall broader sustainability goals. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Labour and Employment will play a vital role in achieving a just transition of our labour market into a sustainable island state. As we navigate the challenges posed by climate change and the imperative to create a sustainable future, we recognize, Madam Speaker, the need to prioritize the well-being of our workers. Our goal is to ensure that no one is left behind in this transition. We envision a labour market that is not only environmentally conscious, but also socially equitable. To achieve this, we will focus on several key principles. One, we will identify the gaps in the labour market. So, to transition into a sustainable island state, for example, the focus, as the mover of the bill suggested, would be on clean energy, renewable energy. We need to determine in labour and employment whether we have the current skill sets, and as such, we would need to do an assessment of the labour market. For example, at SCASPA, at the airport, we had a solar farm, and whenever the solar farm malfunctioned, we had to fly in a technician who would work on the farm, and that is because we didn't have the expertise on island. Now, in labour and employment, our job in the transitioning into a sustainable island state means that it is important for us to assess the labour market, identify the gaps that are necessary for us to transition into a sustainable island state, and make sure that we plug our resources there. So that means education and skills development. We'd have to work on that consistent with our findings from the assessment. So I'll work with the honourable member from St. Christopher 1 to change curriculums in school where we can introduce more subjects that are consistent with our findings in transitioning. We would need people who can install solar systems. We should be focusing our energies not so much, I think somebody said, not on doctors and lawyers. We do have a lot of that. But we really need to be focusing on skill sets that are necessary for the just transitioning into a sustainable island state. We also, in this year, will focus and have regular and consistent stakeholder consultations. The just transition of the labour market into a sustainable island state is a complex endeavour. However, Madam Speaker, with a clear vision, strong partnerships, and a commitment to social equity, we are confident that we can create a future where our workers and our environment thrive together. Now, at this time, Madam Speaker, permit me to present the imperative case for the strategic and conscientious allocations in the budget that will advance our nation's tourism sector as an integral component of our journey towards a sustainable future. As we march forward on the journey to a sustainable island state, it is incumbent upon us to recognize the pivotal role of tourism in not only driving economic prosperity, but also the importance of safeguarding our ecological heritage and nurturing the well-being of our local communities, which is the essence of what we call sustainable tourism. We have been advocating in the Ministry of Tourism for our service providers, our stakeholders, industry partners to adopt sustainable practices in tourism. We like to say, if we don't have a country, we won't have a destination to sell. The other day we went with the Sustainable Destination Council and we partnered with the Ministry of Environment and we went on the no plastic drive. We were collecting bottles and we thought, and we wanted to get our people to understand that if we don't take care of our country, of our environment, in 25 years, we won't have a country to sell. And if you don't have a country to sell, there's no destination to sell. And no destination means no tourism. So it is important for us, Madam Speaker, that we understand not just as industry partners, not just as stakeholders, but even as citizens of this country, how important it is for us to adopt sustainable practices. Since transitioning to tourism, our picturesque islands have captivated the hearts of visitors from around the world. Our pristine beaches, lush rainforests, and the vibrant culture have served as a magnetic force, attracting travelers seeking an authentic and unforgettable experience. In fact, when I go out to sell the destination, that is what I boast about. That in St. Kitts, we don't boast about the sun and the sand and the beach. You can get that in Jamaica, you can get that in the Bahamas, you can get it anywhere in the world. But what you can't get, Madam Speaker, anywhere else is the rich culture that we have here in St. Kitts, our lush rainforests. We have the only rainforest, well, one of the few rainforests that continues to expand, whereas elsewhere in the world, rainforests, they are decreasing, but ours continues to grow. People are looking for an authentic, unforgettable experience. In St. Kitts, we owe our success in the tourism sector to the dedication and hard work of our industry partners and stakeholders, and all of our people who have warmly welcomed visitors with open hearts and shared the rich tapestry of our heritage. Our vision for the future is one of sustainability and responsible development. It is therefore imperative, Madam Speaker, that we re-evaluate our approach to measuring the success of our tourism industry. And for us, this is absolutely important. For too long, our primary focus has been on sheer number of visitors, which can be at the expense of the overall quality of the experiences and the economic benefits to our people. It is time, Madam Speaker, for a paradigm shift. We must recognize the true measure of success in tourism lies not in the quantity of visitors alone, but in the quality of their experiences and the economic value they bring. It is time for us, Madam Speaker, to shift our focus from increasing the spend, to shift our focus to increasing the spend per visitor rather than merely striving to attract high numbers. So there was a lot of banter when we posted the schedule for the calls that we were having for this season in cruise tourism. So, for example, I think we had maybe roughly 18 calls less than we had last year. But what we realized, Madam Speaker, notwithstanding the number of calls being less than what we had last year, we had an increase in visitors. based on the size of the ships. As well as, Madam Speaker, and we're still doing the assessment because the season has just started, but the focus really is on the increase in spend per visitor, as opposed to bringing in all, those visitors. And I have a comparative analysis that we did in the ministry last year, which forms the basis of the submission. So we compared the slow and busy days. For example, on the 20th of February 2023, we had our amount of jobs dispatched, 38 on that day, and amount of passengers dispatched was 193. The cost of jobs dispatched on that date, Madam Speaker, was 2,347. And these are the slow days. As well as on the 9th of March 2023, we had 14 jobs dispatched, and amount of passengers dispatched was 51, and the cost of jobs dispatched was 908. When we did an analysis comparing a busy day, the 16th of February 2023, we had 98 jobs dispatched and 796 passengers dispatched. And on another busy day, we looked at where we had 125 jobs dispatched and 941. The analysis shows, although more jobs were dispatched on the 1st of March as opposed to the figures represented on the 18th of February, the quality and types of jobs dispatched on the 16th were of greater value and of such resulted in an overall greater earnings for the operations dispatched on that day. So what the analysis is showing that even with what the focus needs to be is on higher spending passengers, because even on a day when we had more jobs dispatched, when you looked at the ships, and I didn't want to mention which ships, when you looked at the ships that were in port, which we call luxury vessels, the overall value of the jobs dispatched were even higher on a day when you had more jobs dispatched, where the focus was on quantity. And so we understand that to increase the visitor spend, Madam Speaker, the focus should be on attracting quality and luxury vessels, as we say, so that we can have more spend per visitor. It is disheartening, however, Madam Speaker, that notwithstanding our government's explicit embrace of the sustainable tourism movement, the way tourism has actually been happening in our federation puts many of our hopes for sustainability at peril. A recent United Nations development program done here in St. Kitts, where we did a diagnostic study of tourism, showed that the St. Kitts, and I quote, St. Kitts' volume-driven strategy is incompatible with what we are trying to achieve in a sustainable tourism agenda. And I would repeat, the St. Kitts volume strategy is incompatible with what is trying to be achieved with sustainable tourism agenda. Madam Speaker, it is therefore necessary that we create policies and initiatives that ensure their strategies for tourism growth and development are genuinely compatible with a sustainable agenda. As such, Madam Speaker, in the upcoming year, we intend to realign our key performance indicators to reflect this new focus on quality over quantity. We will work towards fostering an environment that encourages longer stays, higher expenditures, and more importantly, a deeper engagement with our local offerings. And I am pleased to say, Madam Speaker, on the last point of having a deeper engagement with our local offerings, we have partnered with one of our industry partners, that is Carnival Cruise Lines, when we went to meet with them last. They have agreed to come down early in the new year to work with our cruise and tour operators so that they can understand what is needed by visitors. Visitors don't just want to come and lie on the sand. They want to have what we call an immersive type experience. And so in the new year, we would be working with our stakeholders in the industry just to ensure that they understand what visitors are looking for in terms of a deeper engagement with our local offerings. Madam Speaker, I want to at this time recognize the Sunset Reef Hotel, Boutique Hotel. They clearly understand, and this is what we're trying to do with all of our industry partners and stakeholders, they understand the sustainable tourism agenda. The recent award by the Caribbean Travel Journal is indicative of this. And I want to take this opportunity to congratulate Mac and the employees at Sunset Reef on this prestigious award, and state, Madam Speaker, that I am indeed honored to be working alongside partners who appreciate the government's agenda in attaining a sustainable island state. Madam Speaker, our New Destinations brand campaign, Venture Deeper, reflects our invitation to visitors to connect more directly with our local communities throughout St. Kitts. This marketing campaign, however, must be substantiated on the ground. As such, in the new year, we plan to work with communities to ensure that small businesses and entrepreneurs providing experiences throughout the island, and that is important not just in Bastille and Frigate Bay, but throughout the island, which is what we are referring to as community tourism. We want to work with them to ensure that these experiences are supported and connected to the tourism value chain. As such, Madam Speaker, we will continue to prioritize community tourism even more in 2024 as a means of decentralizing the tourism products, aptly ensuring that the economic activity to be derived from tourism is spread throughout the country and into the pockets of our citizens. I am pleased, Madam Speaker, to announce that I think it's in Tourism Month, last month, November, we recently launched what we call the Strip in Fig Tree. Some people say Fig Tree is not in Sandy Point, but I'll take the liberty and say Fig Tree, Sandy Point. Just as we have a strip in Frigate Bay, which is deemed one of the prescribed areas that is intended to bring tourism to that area, we felt the need to decentralize the tourism product. And so we worked with some of our partners who have beaches on the bars and even the beach chairs, and we recently launched the strip there in Sandy Point. On that same day, Madam Speaker, participated in the historic Sandy Point Sunset Tour, and this tour was put on by one of our tours and taxi operators, Mr. Hodge, Sylvester Hodge, also known as Socrates. And a group of us from the ministry participated in this sunset tour, and I see some persons here who were on the tour as well. And what came out to us, Madam Speaker, is that there is a need to preserve our historical sites. And this we intend to do with the Department of Culture and the National Trust. We went down, Madam Speaker, to, I think it's a fort in Sandy Point, I can't even remember, but it's below Brimstone Hill, Fort Charles, correct. We went there, and while we were doing the tour, we learned things that cannons were removed. Persons removed items from the site that should be there. They started breaking down buildings on the site, and because they're not properly managed or maintained, we are losing parts of our historical sites. In addition to that, I'm told that divers come from overseas and dive the wrecks and take buttons from shipwrecks and sell them on whether it's Amazon or what's the other one called, eBay. But what is clear is that there is an urgent need for us in tourism, as well as those who work in the National Trust and even the Department of Culture, to make sure that our historical sites are preserved. And so that is something we're going to be prioritizing. Even we went to, when they took us to another place, down, I think it's Downing Street it's called, where the old courthouse in Sandy Point was. There was a building, I'm told, that was the first Catholic church. And there was a fort as well that is submerged into water. Whoever thought it best to sell that building where somebody now lives to, I think, and it might have been even before my time, but what it shows is that we do not have an appreciation of what we have in terms of our historical sites and heritage sites. We intend, Madam Speaker, therefore, to prioritize the preservation of all historical sites and whatever comes with it, whether it's the cannons or the buildings, whatever comes along with the site. Now, Madam Speaker, as it relates to international transport, stayover visits is going to be a priority. Now, stayover tourism growth for small islands like ours can only be sustainable if we have adequate airlift into our airports. I am pleased to report that our efforts at growing airlift have already borne excellent fruit, thanks to our partners like JetBlue, Caribbean Airlines, Inter-Caribbean, and even Silver Airways, all of whom have willingly come to share in our country's projected economic growth. Our visitors and residents alike now have more travel options than ever before, with hundreds of seats added monthly into our RLB airports only since the election of this Labour administration. However, Madam Speaker, progress always has a price. Air arrivals growth is causing unprecedented levels of human congestion inside and vehicular traffic congestion outside of the RLB terminal. At certain times of day, especially on the weekends, the space and facilities at the airport are being overrun with excess demand. And that is a good problem to have, so we're not even complaining. This Labour administration knows that the demand at the airport has to be met if our tourism is to be sustainable. Such, Madam Speaker, I am pleased to announce that the apron rehabilitation project, which is a crucial component of our airport infrastructure, has successfully been completed on time, and not only on time, but within budget. And that is important. That is important, Madam Speaker, because we inherited a mess at our ports in terms of the facilities that are there, particularly as it relates to the second pier. We are happy that, yes, the avocado, as the member from number 6 had referred to it as. But we are happy to report that the apron infrastructure was completed on time and within budget. I'm advised that the apron has been swept and all barriers and other equipment removed, and that we are now making use of it. This government has, within the short time, made significant progress with the much-needed refurbishment and improvements to the asphalt portion of the parking apron. This is already proving to be a welcome relief for the movement and parking of the larger numbers of both large and small aircraft. Madam Speaker, our government, however, is already in the early stages of planning for an exciting RLB terminal expansion and modernization project. This you can expect to hear more about in the coming months. We appreciate that we've outgrown the footprint of the existing space. We simply cannot, however, delay such a project for much longer if we are to continue to promote St. Kitts and Nevis as a sustainable tourism destination with welcoming and comfortable ports of entry for all visitors and residents alike. I'm happy, Madam Speaker, to report that St. Kitts tourism is on the move again. Now, as it relates to civil aviation, and I see some of the members here this morning, we were able to correct a number of deficiencies highlighted by TSA, that is the Transportation Security System Agency, and ECHA. What a deficiency is, Madam Speaker, if you are cited with a deficiency either by TSA or ECHA, it can affect your ability, our ability, to operate at the airports. It might mean they may give us some time to correct the deficiencies, or they may just decide that they would not be sending flights to our airport. One of the deficiencies we were able to correct was in relation to, and this is at the Civil Aviation Department, was in relation to the overgrown vegetation both at the RLB International Airports and Vance Amory International Airports. In St. Kitts, we made significant efforts to engage competent landscapers to make sure that SCASPA's money is being spent properly, and that is the truth. That is the truth. Before we took office, the airport was overgrown. We were cited for many deficiencies for the overgrown landscape, but as we took office, and this year, we were happy that we were able to correct that deficiency by engaging competent landscapers to ensure that we remain compliant, and of course, to ensure the safety of our visitors. In Nevis, as it relates to the Vance Amory International Airport, I met with the Honourable Member for Nevis 9, and we sat and discussed measures to correct a number of deficiencies. So we went over to Nevis as the Civil Aviation Department, and we are on our way to making sure that those deficiencies are corrected. The Civil Aviation Department, between January 30th and the end of November 2023, trained approximately 560 persons. Agencies including SCASPA, NASPA, Delta Airlines, American Airlines, KDP, Alpha, and a number of security service operations were trained. The Civil Aviation Department trained persons in the areas of aviation recurrence, airline security awareness, crisis management and tabletop training, safety awareness workshop held in Nevis, and a number of other forms of training. In the Civil Aviation Division, we also spearheaded a meeting with SCASPA to have the Air Traffic Services Operation Manual completed. And this was important as well because this was cited as a deficiency by the Eastern Caribbean, by ECHA. And so we continue to work hard, even in civil aviation, and this department, Madam Speaker, is responsible for implementing the regulatory framework for international transports. We did a number of inspections, which is also important. We conducted at least 7 security inspections at RLB, including one night inspection, and TSA would have come in and inspected both RLB and the Vance Amory International Airports. We also conducted security audits, which is also important, Madam Speaker. I want to, at this time, thank the staff at the Civil Aviation Department, and I see Mr. Griffin is present this morning. He is always on the ball, and that's all of them. He's the only one here. He's a diligent worker, Madam Speaker, and it's because of his work and the other members of the department why we were selected for the one-stop, what is it called, one-stop search? One-stop security search. So it is important for us to remain compliant. This obviously would result in better visitor experience and travel when once you're searched here, it's easier when you get to your destination. And so I want to commend them, Madam Speaker, for the work that we continue to do in civil aviation and to encourage persons to consider careers in aviation. This as well helps in the creation of a sustainable island state as well, where our focus and the gaps in the labor market would be identified and we fill those gaps. Now, as it relates to tourism, again, our multi-year tourism strategy is due for updating. We intend in tourism to take a data-driven approach to making sure that our tourism plan is based on solid evidence of the needs in areas we are prioritizing. For example, we are overdue, Madam Speaker, for a firm understanding of the carrying capacity and optimal visitor management approaches within SKNIS as a whole, as well as at our key sites and attractions. So when we went, for example, to meet with Royal Caribbean, they raised the fact that in St. Martin, they had 4 ships docked in port, and that's Oasis-type ships, and that resulted with maybe about 30,000 passengers being on the island at one time. They wanted to know from us if that is where we want to go, whether we're interested in having 30,000 people walking the streets of Bastia and the different sites, whether we are focused on quantity over quality. We feel, however, that in order to remain a top-rated destination and to appeal to luxury visitors, and as well to protect our local way of life and environmental and cultural resources, we must make sure that our destinations and attractions are not overcrowded. We plan, Madam Speaker, to conduct a visitor management study destination-wide, focusing on some key sites and attractions to inform our tourism planning, ultimately to make sure we are managing tourism in ways that benefit our local residents and protect our local interests. A key focus of tourism plans must be prioritizing the stay of our visitors, both on island and yachting visitors. This, Madam Speaker, requires both increased and, more importantly, more affordable airlift. And I think that's something the member from Nevis 9 raised, more affordable airlift and a concerted yachting tourism strategy. And so we're focusing on that. We have a yachting task force in place, and we're hoping that we can roll that out early in the new year. To ignite a surge in travel demand for SKNIS, the dedicated team members of the Tourism Authority traveled to key locations where we conducted numerous media appearances during those visits. We also organized captivating media events and hosted engaging press conference. This is important, Madam Speaker, because this is how we raise awareness for the destination and in turn stimulate demand. So when the naysayers are saying, oh, every minute they're on a plane, it makes me wonder if they even understood what they were doing and what was needed to boost demand for the destination when they were in government. I sometimes think it's ignorance, sometimes I think it's they're making mischief, but nonetheless, what we realized, Madam Speaker, is that when we conducted these media appearances and the media events and the press conferences, that the demand for the destination was stimulated, and it's showing in the numbers. These concerted efforts were strategically designed to create widespread awareness about the experiences that SKNIS offers. By investing time and money and other resources, of course, in cultivating relationships with the media in these important markets, the SKNIS Tourism Authority ensured that the unique allure of our destination was effectively communicated. And like I said, Madam Speaker, we're seeing the results because the planes are coming, the flights are coming packed. In fact, when the team was traveling from a meeting we had in Turks and Caicos, We were sitting in, and I think the people didn't even know who we were, but the air hostess was saying to one of the passengers boarding the flight, I'm not even sure what happened. There's just a sudden increase in demand for SKNIS. She was saying it's almost as if SKNIS was just recently discovered. And NIVIS, of course. But, and let me say this, because I hear the honorable member from NIVIS 11 saying and NIVIS, and that is something I intend to raise with the honorable member from NIVIS 9. What we do have is two separate tourism products. So NIVIS has its own authority and SKNIS has its own authority. Recently, however, Madam Speaker, we've been working together and we've been on tours together, selling the destination and collaborating together. We intend in the new year to see, and I'm not sure even if it's something we should fix. We like to boast and say, when you fly to SKNIS, you can get a whole nother experience in NIVIS, or when you fly to NIVIS, you can come over to SKNIS and have another experience. So you can have two experiences on one trip, and two completely different experiences, as we have two different products. So even if I don't say NIVIS, and that is because NIVIS sells its own products. Now, Madam Speaker, the commencement of the highly anticipated year-round JetBlue flights 3 times a week from JFK, which year-round, and that is ultimately what the objective is, to make our destination year-round. Tourism is seasonal, and so for us to have year-round flights is taking us closer to our objective. And these flights out of JFK is from our biggest source market, which is in the US. And so this, too, Madam Speaker, was strategic. For us, it is a huge accomplishment for our US markets. We've heard the calls, however, from our friends in Washington, even persons in Fort Lauderdale, and some persons in the US Virgin Islands who continue to say, Minister, we need to get flights out of Washington to SKNIS. We need to get flights out of Fort Lauderdale. And persons have been messaging for flights out of the US Virgin Islands. What we need to focus on, and that would be the focus of this year before we start thinking of expanding routes, is filling the seats. Once we can fill those seats, and so far, we've been doing well in terms of our promotion of the destination. Once those seats are filled, then we can expand our routes into, whether it's OB, the biggest baddest blogger, he's begging for flights to Washington. But once, and persons are begging for flights from the US Virgin Islands. But once we fill these seats on the existing routes, then we can focus on expanding our routes. And we're hopeful that is something we can do within the new year. I want to assure the people of SKNIS and NIVIS. How much more time do I have, Madam Speaker? Okay. Okay. He said? Madam Speaker, I want to assure the people of SKNIS and NIVIS that while we have achieved much, we are not sitting on our laurels. Through robust marketing initiatives, our aim is to continue to generate demand, to fill the seats coming into the destination, and encourage our airline partners to increase the frequency of existing service, and like I said earlier, the expansion of routes. We continue to look for opportunities to develop the sector and its economic contribution. Now, as it relates to cruise and the product development of cruise tourism, over the past year, my team and I have been actively engaging the cruise lines to ensure that we remain priority while working with our stakeholders to deliver an exceptional experience. When we go to these meetings, Madam Speaker, somebody has said, don't beg, but we try our best to make sure that we can remain a priority on these itineraries. And one of the things, Jeffrey. One of the things that they asked at these meetings is, what is SKNIS doing in relation to the sustainability agenda? And we are always proud, and I see some of the persons in the gallery who travel with us, we are always proud to talk of our journey to a sustainable island state. The cruise liners then engage us, and we talk about the fact that we have shore power on Pier 1. Now, Pier 2 was constructed not under Labour administration, but Pier 1, which was constructed first by a Labour administration, back then was constructed with the ability to have shore power. That means the cruise liners can come, plug in, and save on the carbon emissions. We talk about the vision of the member from St. Christopher 3 for one of these days, hopefully allowing the ships to plug in that fits into our grid, or even having a solar farm at Port Zante. And so, Madam Speaker, we continue to ensure that we remain a priority with the cruise liners. Allow me to reassure our citizens and tourism stakeholders that St. Kitts is on a path of recovery to return to growth. This is the only sector that has so far been slow to growth, because the airlift, we've increased accessibility to the destination. However, the cruise sector has so far been the only one slow to growth. This year, as we said, the move of the bill said cruise arrivals will be roughly the same as last year. The truth is, the biggest reason for the delayed return to pre-pandemic numbers can be traced back to the politicized decision that the Harris government made during the pandemic. And that really is it. It is well known that St. Kitts was one of the very last ports to reopen as a destination for cruise ships. And as we took government, our Prime Minister, the Honourable Member for number 8, immediately opened up the borders. The Harris government showed unnecessary hostility to the cruise line in the process. In short, our past government's refusal to help cruise lines in their time of drastic need has cost the St. Kitts cruise sector dearly. But this is a concern that has received my ministry's attention from very early in my tenure. I'm confident, Madam Speaker, that we are steadily getting back onto even ground. 2024-2025 cruise season should see a return to a strong growth trajectory for our cruise numbers, both in terms of ship traffic and visitor expenditure. So not only will we see an increase in the traffic, but in 2024-2025, we will also see, based on the ships that intend to call at our ports, an increase in visitor expenditure. And so, Madam Speaker, as we continue to advance the cruise industry, it is evident that we must invest in the diversification of our product. And this is something we've been saying to our stakeholders: we must diversify our offerings. Everybody can't do a rainforest tour. Everybody can't do a rum tour. We must be innovative and invest in the diversification of our product. We also, Madam Speaker, must build the capacity and expertise of our people and review policies affecting the operations of the sector. And like I said earlier, we are working with our industry partners, those at Carnival and even Royal Caribbean MSC. They're going to be coming down early in the new year to work with our stakeholders on how exactly they can diversify their offerings. Madam Speaker, transforming St. Kitts into a year-round destination is a long-term goal that is actively being pursued through collaborative endeavors on both local and global scales. Our marketing strategy is one that aims to highlight the unique selling points of our product, thus distinguishing it from other sun destinations. And that is what I was referring to earlier, that we don't only boast, actually we boast when we sell the destinations, both St. Kitts and Nevis, about the off-the-beach experiences. Most persons, when they're selling their destinations, they say, oh, we have the best beaches, we have white sand, but when we sell our destination, we boast about the off-the-beach experiences. We think, Madam Speaker, like I said, that these are the points, the unique selling points that distinguish our destination from other sun destinations. So earlier this year, we worked with our stakeholders when we launched the eagerly anticipated Kittian Rum Master Program, which garnered global recognition and praise. This initiative, developed in collaboration with our local rum partners, it was meticulously crafted to give our visitors an opportunity to explore the history of rum in St. Kitts. So just to tell you, Madam Speaker, this particular product offers two things, and this, I mean, visitors come, it's sold out all the time. And I'm just saying this for those listening to understand when we say diversify our offerings, what it means. So we met with the owners of Wingfield Estate, I think it's Jack, for Old Road Rum, where down at Wingfield Estate, they recently discovered the remains of a rum distillery way back from 1625. In fact, it is believed to be the first rum distillery in the Caribbean. What our stakeholders are doing there is they have recreated, so when you go on that tour, you walk the estates, you see you get the theoretical parts, and so you understand how rum is made. You understand the history between sugar and rum in St. Kitts. And then you go to the second part of the tour over on the southeast with Mr. Brisbane, I think it's hibiscus rum, where you can actually make your own rum. So the tour is two parts. You understand the theoretical parts. At Wingfield Estate, you tour the ruins, you understand how rum was made and how we transitioned from sugar into rum. And then you go over to the southeast on the beach, which is the absolute best place on the southeast, and you can actually make your own rum and be certified as a Kittian Rum Master. So when, just so, easy like that. And so when you leave here, you have a certificate certifying. Now that is important, because what you don't want when visitors come here, or you take them on a tour around the island, our stakeholders must be innovative. So like I said, visitors have the opportunity then to participate in the theoretical session against the historic Wingfield backdrop and complete a practical session while looking at the breathtaking views of Nevis Peak. I heard that.
That's the second question.
Yes. Now, Madam Speaker, in transitioning our destination into a year-round destination as opposed to seasonal, because we're all aware that the traffic comes between October and April, we're aware of the challenges that we experience in the summer months. To drive arrivals to the destination, this year we created the Summer of Fun campaign, and we intend in the new year to implement it once again. And this is designed to inspire summer travel. This encompassed a series of engaging events, including the St. Kitts Music Festival, which is held in June. And I think the music festival, I know the music festival was designed to drive traffic to St. Kitts during the slow period. We had the Mango Festival in Nevis. This is all a part of the Summer of Fun. And like I said to my friend from Nevis 11, when we sell the destination, we sell St. Kitts and Nevis. So when we go and we say, come to St. Kitts in the summer, because that's when we struggle. We have the music festival, we have the Nevis Mango Festival, we have Restaurant Week. And this year for Restaurant Week, we introduced the inaugural Grill Fest, which was a big bang. We had Nevis Culturama and CPL. And so it is our hope, Madam Speaker, that with the monies allocated to us in this budget, that we can stimulate demand for our destinations, both St. Kitts and Nevis, during the slow period, ultimately resulting in a year-round destination. The Tourism Authority unveiled the Summer Fun campaign through a media and influencer event held in Miami. This event effectively planted the seeds for media coverage and excitement surrounding the 2023 anticipated Summer Fun. The first event of the Summer Fun calendar, and just to make citizens aware of how we spent the government's money, I know there was a outcry when we heard Burna Boy was coming, almost like we broke the government, the treasury. Its 25th edition of the St. Kitts Music Festival was a huge success by achieving its main objective of stimulating economic activity during the traditional slow period. And what we found out, even though that is known as the traditional slow period, and when we thought the numbers would drop even by April, in May the numbers continued. In June, we were seeing the flights still coming full. American Airlines would have switched out one of the aircrafts to a smaller one, and they told us they struggled because a number of times persons were left back. I don't even know how they continue to book more flights than seats that are available. The festival boasted several initiatives with a clear mandate to increase the competitiveness and inclusivity of the event while addressing some of the concerns that often cloud the experience of our patrons. For the first time ever, the festival was 420 friendly, and we can report, Madam Speaker, that aspect of the festival also was successful. This pilot initiative, coupled with other elements such as the food courts, infused with cultural performances, facilitated a more immersive experience as individuals were encouraged to venture deeper. As a result of the exceptional lineup, the festival garnered substantial attention from a range of international and regional media outlets, aligned with the authorities' goal of broadening the festival's market influence and the overall destination experience. Just to name a few media entities that were on island, we had Ebony, we had Fault Magazine, Grenada National Media Center, we had Loop Caribbean, and a number of others we extended invitations to visit. This initiative, of course, yielded extensive coverage of the festival, reaching diverse and well-established media platforms. This year as well, Madam Speaker, we refined our marketing strategy with more emphasis placed on public relations and further building brand awareness. Our PR agencies in the US, which is Fin Partners, those in Canada and in the UK have diligently worked towards promoting our destination within the respective source markets. These PR agencies, and if you look at the budget, Madam Speaker, you'd see monies allocated there for these PR agencies, and they have effectively secured prominent international coverage for our destination, spotlighting a range of attractions, including adventure experiences, culinary and rum offerings, diving opportunities, sustainability initiatives, romantic getaways, and honeymoon inspirations, among others. For me, Madam Speaker, when we are selling the destination, I always feel so proud of all these things that form part of our product, whether it's culinary or rum, whether it's the diving opportunities, the sustainability initiatives, even the honeymoon and inspiration, or the honeymoon and marriage inspiration aspects of the product. I like to tell the story of how our culinary, when I go on these trips, how our culinary tells our story as a people. And when you come here, just by going to, for example, on the strip and eating local food tells who we are. So, for example, we have black pudding. Black pudding was created from our ancestors. It comes out of our culture, where the slaves they took, I think it's the intestines, I mean, I don't eat it, but they took the intestines, cooked rice in blood, and created what we now have as a delicacy. Similarly, because of the resiliency of our ancestors, and we tell these stories, and people are amazed and want to come here. How we have sauce, because our ancestors were given the parts of the swine, while the plantation owners got the leaner parts of the meat. We got the foot, we got the tail, we got the ear, the snout, and we've managed, through our culinary, to create an authentic type of culinary experience that tells our story as a people. And so I'm always overwhelmed with the product that we offer here in tourism in St. Kitts and Nevis. Madam Speaker, to convert our plans for sustainable tourism that benefits our local businesses and residents into action that truly harnesses tourism as a regenerative force for good will take deep and close coordination both across government and also private sector and communities. The St. Kitts Sustainable Destination Council was established in 2013, 10 years ago, of course under a Labour-led government, at the recommendation of the Global Sustainable Tourism Council as one of the first destination stewardship councils in the world. Designed to foster cross-sector collaboration on protecting our community and making sure tourism works well for our local people, our environment, our economy and culture, the Sustainable Destination Council has capably served as an advisory body to the Ministry of Tourism for the last 10 years. So for us, sustainable tourism isn't new. I mean, now we're working towards a sustainable island state, but in tourism, we've always been aware that if we don't adopt sustainable practice, we won't have a destination to sell. For the last 10 years, St. Kitts has been systematically in the process of working towards compliance with the Global Sustainable Tourism Council's criteria for destinations. This is the world's leading standard for sustainability of tourism management within destinations. The motto of the St. Kitts Sustainable Destination Council is good for us, better for all, meaning that if St. Kitts is first and foremost a wonderful place for our residents to live, then and only then will it also be a great place for visitors to experience. And as such, we continue to advocate with our stakeholders to implement, whether it's in the accommodation sector, as Sunset Reef has done, and this government is accommodating in terms of providing concessions for those partners and stakeholders who are interested and who want to be a part of the sustainable agenda. So whether it's a hotel or otherwise, our government is prepared to accommodate. As part of the next chapter of the Sustainable Destination Council, we will be putting out a call to local organizations and residents to participate as members of the SDC. Our ministry is committed to putting our local people back at the center of our tourism plans. And let me say that again, Madam Speaker. Our ministry and our government is committed to putting our local people back at the center of our tourism plans. And I ask each and every one of you under the sound of my voice to join me in helping me to make tourism work better for all of us. The achievements and plans that I have outlined for the Ministry of Tourism, I must say, Madam Speaker, align perfectly with the government's overall agenda of achieving a sustainable island state. We will therefore continue our hard work in the industry with the citizens of this federation in mind, and of course, the future generations. Madam Speaker, before I close, permit me to thank the good people of Central Bastille for their trust and confidence, the trust and confidence that they have placed in me as their representative in these halls. Earlier, we had some children who were here present, and of course, their attention span is very limited at that age. When we had our one-on-ones, we had a meet and greet recently in Central Bastille for the youths. And I was amazed with the different ages of children who came. One of the boys who sat there, he thought I was the Prime Minister. So he came in, he sat in front of me, and he said, "I want to be the Prime Minister like you." He's 7 years old, Madam Speaker, and it warmed my heart that we have young men, albeit, in 7 years old, aspiring to be a future leader as opposed to what McKnight is known for, which is shooting and killing, unfortunately. Now, apparently they went to the bathroom as well. But he said that to me, and I said, I am not the Prime Minister. Do you want me to take you to meet the Prime Minister? And he said, yes, yes, and when I go, I want to wear a suit. Please don't forget the tie and the belt. And he was there with his friend. And the friend, I was so amazed. I looked to the friend and I said, so what can I do for you today? Because they were there on their one-on-ones. This was particular for young people. And I said, what do... Yes. I said, what... So I turned to his friend. His friend is Vernon. And I said, Vernon, what can I do for you today? And he said, you see what he said? I said, yes. He said, just what he said, write down on your paper. And I saw them. I went to look for them. They sometimes hang out in Prickly Pear Alley, and I was driving that way. And I saw them a Sunday morning while I was driving. And I said, I couldn't remember his name. And I called him a different name. And he said, look on your paper. Because he understood I was writing. He said, look on your paper, and you would see my name. Madam Speaker, we also met with young females. One of them was here as well. She told me she wants to be a minister of governments. And she is going to do her best in school to make sure that one of these days she can come out and be a leader in McKnight. I reached out to their parents and asked them if I could take them to Parliament to meet the members of the government and even the members who sit on the opposition side, and their parents were happy to send them. They may not be able to stay beyond lunch, but they're right here, Madam Speaker. And there were a few of them. I just wasn't able to find them during the Christmas vacation, but a few of them came. We did specific one-on-ones for the young people in McKnight, and surprisingly, we got these children as well. We got the older ones, the teenagers, but we also got these little ones, and it warms my heart to know that we have future leaders from the Central Basti community. And I will do my best, Madam Speaker, to continue to work with them. And as such, we are going to implement a mentorship program to save not just our boys in McKnight, but our girls. And I would ask some of you to volunteer in this mentorship program just to make sure that we can save this generation. And so I'm happy that they're here with me, Kazani and his brother, and I call her Muffin, but her name is Zahira. Her sister is actually my mentee. She was in sixth form, and I'm happy now to take her under my mentorship as well.
Honourable Member, you have 10 minutes left on your allotted time.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Now, Madam Speaker, for the communities in Central Basti, the budget has allocations for the resurfacing and even the construction of new roads for the good people of Central Basti. And so, when the member from number 3 speaks, you will hear how he's going to, with the monies allocated to him in the budget. I see he's watching me, so I hope he's listening. With some of the monies allocated to him in the budget, resurface some of the roads in downtown Bastia. For example, we've already gotten the resurfacing of the roads in Sprott Street, Market Street, where I hail from. We call it M Street for those of us in the streets. So we have Market Street resurfaced already. We have Sprott Street, and we also did roads in Greenlands. We're also going to be working on other roads within the city center, and those of you in the Shadwell area, which is a recent development, will get your roads as well. The member from St. Christopher 1, when he made his presentation, spoke of the allocations in his budget for repairs to the Irish Town Primary School. In fact, the repairs have started, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, thank you. I was distracted, but within this budget, as it relates to the good and decent people from Central Bastia who I represent in these halls, I want to assure them that the repairs to the Irish Town Primary School would be completed. We walked there. I see Mr. Dolphin is here, who is also a good partner for the school. We have the windows and the doors that are going to be secured, and all the other repairs that need to be done to the Irish Town School, and the bathroom started. We're happy, Madam Speaker, that we were able to put the children back into the schools because they were temporarily housed at 3 different places after the Ministry of Education took the decision that the compounds were not necessarily safe. I've said it before, I cannot believe that people who claimed to be the representative of, a person who claimed to be the representative of Central Bastia and was the Minister of Education, was he? I think. When we looked at the school, we could not even believe the condition the school was in. So people just talk. People just talk and make a lot of noise. Talk, 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 talk. Irish Town School went garbage upon garbage, classrooms locked down, floors falling in. I wondered how teachers even managed to work there and how people could send their children there. But
people to the work and the work ain't done.
Right.
They receive the money.
But we are going to finish the repairs at the Irish Town Primary School so that our children can thrive and learn in a proper and clean environment. And I see some of them here. We are happy that they're going to have a proper school to attend. Now, as it relates to Central Bastia, Madam Speaker, we intend to work with the Department of Constituency Empowerment. And the department has been doing an excellent job. We had some of our empowerment officers who were here this morning, where they're doing the assessment and research on the grounds in terms of what policies or projects should be introduced to benefit the constituency. What came out of some of the findings as it relates to Central Bastia is that there are a number of derelict vehicles and abandoned properties that is causing a nuisance to the residents in Central Bastia. So, Madam Speaker, based on the findings from the constituency empowerment department, we're hoping that in their budget, I think, the monies are allocated in this budget to assist, and we thank the Honourable Minister of Finance for the allocation to assist with the cleanliness for Central Bastia, the removing of derelict vehicles. When you drive, you would see 3 abandoned vehicles in moving years, just parked up and rusting, and they're just there, and it's causing rodents, Madam Speaker, and even affecting the safety of the residents in Central Bastia, as well as the overgrown properties where residents reside overseas and have not looked back. And people occupy these premises for different reasons and sometimes, bad reasons. When we were canvassing the other day, we were in the Dorset area in particular, and the residents were saying, look at this house, it's been like this for years. Vagrants go in there, people hide guns in there, and so we're going to use the monies allocated, some of the monies allocated in the budget to assist the good people in Central Bastia to clean the overgrown properties and remove the derelict vehicles. We have an amazing team that we work with in Central Bastia. Yesterday we had our toy drive, the Santacade, and we were able to deliver lots of toys to the children in Central Bastia. We drove around all the communities, and it was so heartwarming to see their faces and even meet the people of Central Bastia and just to wish them all the best for the season. And so we are going to benefit. And one last thing, Madam Speaker, I know when I spoke to the Minister of housing, the Honourable Member for St. Christopher 1, he did mention, and we've been hearing the cries from the people at the Gardens Housing Project in relation to the repairs that are long overdue there and even for the houses they built in Shadwell.
700,000.
So $700,000 is allocated in the budget for the Gardens Housing Project for us to effect the repairs necessary there. And maybe we could share some of it for the people in Shadwell as well, who continue to complain about all the different issues that they continue to experience. And so Central Bastia will benefit from this budget, Madam Speaker, and I continue to be the humble servant for those people, those good people in Central Bastia. I see some of Tracelyn, who is here, Tracelyn Charles. She's in Parliament today, Madam Speaker. She single-handedly, of course, with the support of the people in the diaspora who support St. Kitts and Central Bastia, organized successfully a toy drive. And she was able to bring them down, Madam Speaker, to ensure that our children are happy as well with all the other things we got for them. And so, Madam Speaker, I'm going to close, but at this time I just want to mention the names, and this is significant for us, the names of the members of the Minimum Wage Committee. I know I addressed that earlier, but I see His Excellency Sam Conda is here, and I just want to mention he's provided me with the names of the persons who served on the committee, and this is historical for us, Madam Speaker. And that is so because the minimum wage was not increased for 10 years. And in such short time, this team, this group, was able to do consultations, extensive consultations, and make proper recommendations, not just for the increase in the minimum wage, but for all the other plans that go to make sure that there is no real shock as a result of it. So from the St. Kitts Nevis Trades and Labour Union, we had Sydney Bridgewater, just to read into the record, Precious Mills, Curtis Francis, Sean Kelly, and Nadine Natter. From the ministry, which is my Ministry of Employment and Labour, we had our permanent secretary, Denise Daniel, and she's here this morning, our Commissioner of Labour, Shernell James, Terrell Bass, Genevieve Mills, and Joel Watley. And from the St. Kitts Chamber of Industry and Commerce, we had representation from Kevin Taylor, Kevin Thompson, Shirley Benjamin, Jeanette Robinson, Mark Wilkin, and Leroy Richardson. From the Department of Labour in Nevis, Shaniel Skeet, if I'm saying it correctly, represented the department there. We also had representation from the Statistics Department, and Carlton Phipps represented the department. From Social Security, we had Donovan Herbert, and from the Ministry of Education, Carla Diamond. Social Services was represented by Azila Clark, and the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank by Patricia Haynes Welch. The Teachers Union, Cavils Mills, and from the Ministry of Trade, we had Deidre Daniel and Irvin Daniel. The Ministry of Finance, we had representation through Amoy Heiliger, and the Ministry of Sustainable Development through Paul Quealy. And lastly, and by no means late, the Association of Private Educators, we had representation there by Kimon Archibald Lake. And these were the persons who worked tirelessly and diligently, Madam Speaker, on the minimum wage, the increase in the minimum wage, and all the recommendations that were made. And so, Madam Speaker, I will close and support the bill made by the mover, the Minister of Finance, and wish safe passage, and wish the bill safe passage through this Honourable House. May it please you.